What's up, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I'm your host, Naveen Ganglani. We're recording this on a Sunday, late October 5th, Sunday. By the way, a very happy birthday to Mr. Vikash Kidwani, the one and only man of our podcast community chat. Where would we be without him? Probably in a more peaceful and safer world, I should say. Happy birthday, Vic. Hope you enjoyed that game. I know you did not. We're going to be talking about Ateneo versus LaSalle and some of the happenings of the UAAP basketball weekend. And personally, it was the first weekend I covered games live at the arena, and I realized I'm getting old, man. I needed this ice matcha from Cooper's to record tonight for the extra energy, but I'm ready to go, ready to get started, and there's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. Joining me in this episode is Karl Batungbacal. Coming back on the podcast once again, we've talked UAP with him before, and I'm sure that he's excited to share his thoughts about what happened in this Ateneo LaSalle game and some of the other recent events that might shape the rest of the UAP elimination round. So sit back, grab a coffee if you want to as well, probably from Cooper's, best choice, and we'll be right back. We're now joined by Karl Batungbacal, and Karl, who is from Ateneo, also writes for the UAAP, for Humble Bola and sometimes All Star, probably had a good Sunday evening, like many from the blue and white community. Karl, I guess we should start by saying these two things. One is to those who've been following and watching college basketball, particularly Ateneo in the off season, the fact that they won this game should come as no surprise. As a matter of fact, before this game started, I didn't reveal this to anyone. I didn't post it, but I had Ateneo winning the game because of the way they were playing compared to the way LaSalle was playing to start the UAP season. But I feel like it's fair to say that 99% probably of the UAP community did not think that at one point Ateneo would lead LaSalle by 33 points, which they did in this marquee rivalry matchup. The only 1% who assumed were the people who just, spam random comments and say random shit on social media. Be like, tatambakan yan, tatalunan yan. Well, you know what? A broken clock is right twice a day. And they were proven right. But logically speaking, that was quite shocking, right? Just how, forgive me for being so blatant about this, how they were kicking LaSalle's ass for 3 quarters in that contest.
I mean, it was an unexpected first, second, and third quarter for Ateneo because everyone was expecting LaSalle to be this monster of a powerhouse. Honestly, I did. I was nervous entering this game. I won't be that guy who says na Ateneo will easily defeat LaSalle because that's being disingenuous. LaSalle is complete. From my perspective, LaSalle is still complete. They have Kian Baclaan, Jacob Cortez, and then you still have Mike Phillips, and then you have the quote-unquote others. So you have EJ Golyena helping out. So it was a massive shock to me that Ateneo, especially in the third, was it the second or third? It was the second quarter that they limited LaSalle to 8 points. These were your finalists last season, and you're supposed to expect na Ateneo LaSalle to eh. You're supposed to see na they're evenly matched up and everyone's supposed to be giving their all. Pero Ateneo just, I would say, came out and punched LaSalle in the mouth in the first half with a 22-8 run. And then they extended it in the third quarter to 32-19. That was also surprising. I was hoping na LaSalle would be more fired up entering the third. But they did become fired up in the fourth with a lot of, I would say, mental mistakes on Ateneo's part. And I cannot blame Ateneo for that because this is a young team. You have Jared Bahai leading the charge. Divine Adili still developing. You have Sean Tuano. God bless his soul, making Sean Tuano mistakes. I love the guy, but he is very, very questionable sometimes. But he did save Ateneo's butt in the fourth quarter. So I will give him that.
A couple of things. First of all, you're right about Tuano being, I wouldn't say the go-to guy, but kind of like the safety net for Ateneo. I felt his biggest play, and perhaps the biggest play of the second half, was when LaSalle had cut the lead to 11 with, I think it was a little under 5 minutes to go. With 1 second left on the shot clock, Tuano drives. In fact, he drove as the roller, right? He set a screen for Escobar, and Escobar, I thought, was hands down the best player in this game for Ateneo for a few reasons. Escobar finds Tuano. Tuano attacks. I think he finished even with his left hand, but he finished on the left side, and he's a right-handed player, right? And he got the foul, and he made the free throw. Sean Tuano was 7 of 7 from the free throw line in this game. He had 15 points, same as Escobar and Ladi to lead the team. After the contest, Coach Tab Baldwin was saying that Sean didn't just put a mountain of work into his free throws. Sean Tuano put mountains of work in improving his free throw shooting. And you saw the results, 7 out of 7. In fact, and we'll get to LaSalle's free throw woes in a little bit. A commenter in Facebook, I just saw this before we recorded, said, ano ba yan? Naunang pa marunong si Sean Tuano mag-free throws kaysa sa buong LaSalle team. Which is kind of absurd, but also true. I mean, his form looks different. The stroke looks pure. So I just wanted to give Sean that shout out for working on the free throws and not just saying he was going to work on it, but actually prove that he worked on it, right? Because, and I'm not saying that, for example, the guys from LaSalle don't work on the free throws. I'm sure they did, but are you putting in the right work? Because 25 out of 45 from the free throw line in a game you lost by 7, once again, it's no longer just a blip. It's a trend that dates back to last season. Now, I'm going to go on a rant about the free throw shooting again. So let's go back to Ateneo here. I was very curious how Escobar and Ladi would perform in particular as the top one and done guys for Ateneo. Because, yes, while they might have their own mountain of experience playing abroad in the United States, when you come to an Ateneo LaSalle game at the packed Mower, packed Araneta with almost 20,000 people, it's different. You don't just go into the game and suddenly you're playing like you normally do. It takes an adjustment, and it's happened to the best players, the best foreign players we've seen in the UAAP over time. It's not foreign. Now, to be fair, Dom Escobar, I talked to him before the game. I got the chance to catch up to him, and he said, yeah, when Ateneo faced Adamson last weekend, a game which Ateneo also won, but ironically, a game that Escobar wasn't as aggressive, I would say, as the first two games, right? He said it was an adjustment. He couldn't hear his teammates. He couldn't hear his coach's instructions because of the Araneta crowd. And that wasn't even a LaSalle Ateneo crowd yet. That was Adamson Ateneo. Adamson fans, don't come after me. It's just the truth. Um, he even said that after that game, he realized he had to find different ways to make contact with his teammates because they couldn't hear each other. So it would have to be with eyes, micro expressions, little things, little movements. And today he was just ready to go, you know? And I asked him after the game too in the press conference. I was like, Dom, when you play in a crowd like that, pressure like that, instead of being nervous, does it kind of hype you up and make you more confident? And he said, yeah. And actions speak louder than words, and his play showed that. Now, the Ateneo Blue Eagles, they're different players. We're trying to target Mason Amos on defense. Like how I try to target the dessert table right away when it's a Christmas gathering with family. It's their eyes lit up when they were about to be guarded by Mason. And with Dom, it wasn't just Mason he was scoring on. We have to mention that too. He cooked Phillips a few times out in the perimeter. And then after the first two times where he drove against Phillips, hit the jumper, he was looking for him. Dom Escobar is playing like a guy who knows that very little, if no one, in the UAAP can guard him. And that's so dangerous because Ateneo, as another guy who plays with that confidence, Kimani Ladi. Ladi had only 3 points. And Ateneo was up 17 entering the halftime break. Then he scored those 7 points to start the third period, and then you just knew the game was over. Hit a 3-pointer, had that shot in transition against Mason. Then Tuano eventually contributed to. But the key here for me was the Ateneo defense in the first quarter. Length, size, three men on top of the zone, trying to prevent all LaSalle penetration. And when you're Cortez and Baclan, you're trying to find seams to attack, and Ateneo guys can recover quickly because they take up so much space. It shrinks the floor so much for the LaSalle offense that you saw LaSalle taking shots with 6 seconds left on the clock, 7 seconds left on the clock. Now, LaSalle also got to the free throw line quite a few times in the first half. And for God's sakes, they had 3 lane violations. Now, they still missed the shot, so even if there was no lane violation, they probably would have gotten points anyway. But there's something, I don't want to say there's something wrong, but there's something not clicking quite yet with this DLSU roster. The consistency quarter to quarter isn't there. The pecking order, does the ball go to Phillips? Do they play through Baclan, Cortez? It hasn't quite been figured out yet. And even Topix's rotations. I believe in the third period, he had the lineup where, if I recall correctly, Mix Gomez, Daep, Pablo, I think it was Abadam or Goliana, and 2 other guys. No Cortez, no Baclaan, no Phillips, no Amos on the court. And then he went all the way down to trying to play Kines, finding anything. And to me, when a coach is looking for different combinations, looking for different rotations in a game like this, in a game that could be a Final Four preview or a finals preview, it gives me the idea that LaSalle hasn't quite figured out the rotation yet. I think that's fair to say. So what do they do from here? I think, honestly, they just need to go back to playing the free-flowing, natural basketball style that Juno Soler told me UST plays with, where they don't really call plays. They just give the ball to the guys and tell the guys figure it out. That's how LaSalle was playing in the off-season. It wasn't a your turn, my turn. It was a, okay, let's see how this possession goes and we'll figure it out. Cortez is taking 4 straight shots. Baclan will take 5 straight shots. Phillips will attack the glass repeatedly. Now it feels like they're trying to figure out what to do. Now, granted, an Ateneo defense led by Tab Baldwin will usually make you do that, right? That's what Tab likes to do, take you out of your system and make you have to adjust on the fly. And LaSalle is at their best when their defense can press. Someone asked me this earlier during the game. Why wasn't LaSalle pressing so much? It's not easy to press when the other team isn't taking the ball out of bounds, when the other team is getting rebounds and you're playing catch-up trying to get back in transition. And that's what Ateneo did. Their defense was elite, yes, and LaSalle's lack of offensive production helped Ateneo's offense as well.
No, I definitely agree because when you look at LaSalle earlier, especially in that, I would say, pivotal second quarter, LaSalle was shocked. I don't want to say it in a negative way, but LaSalle was definitely shocked. I don't know what happened with Topex or with anyone else in the huddle for LaSalle, but when they entered for the second quarter, it was like the energy was off. Iba yung vibes eh. Like you can see based on body language or at least how they approach things on the floor, if they have energy or ganado sila maglaro. Like what we always say in the Philippines, dapat lagi kang ganado, whether down or whether up, dapat laging ganado. But LaSalle's body language was supremely off in the second quarter. Yes, lamang ang Ateneo by 3 points entering the second quarter, pero you don't give up on possessions. I think that's the thing that I hated most about LaSalle. It took them to be down by 30 plus points before they decided to turn it up in the fourth. Like, you could have done this no second quarter pa lang. The third quarter, you could have done this. Pero why wait until the fourth? Anong meron? So, hindi ko siya ma-figure out personally. Like, is there a weird system, like what you pointed out, that LaSalle is employing or enacting that forces everyone else to get off their groove? Kasi you had Baclaan playing decently well to start. Mike Phillips was playing decently well. But then may mga questionable rotations wherein, I think this is what I pointed out, Mason Amos being left out alone on the floor without Mike Phillips is a big big negative for Mason Amos both on the offense and the defense because wala siyang cover from Mike Phillips. On the offensive side, walang screener, walang confident big, walang pwede pagkatiwalaan si Mason to be the rebounder if ever he misses his shots. And we know Mason is a perimeter player. When you don't have that controlling big always on the floor to pair up with Mason, kita mo shook sila eh. Mason, God bless his soul, I don't care about the rivalry at this point. Pure basketball, it was a very, very head-scratching decision to keep Phillips on the bench and Amos playing.
It goes back to what I said about the rotation, where he hasn't quite figured out, meaning Topex, what lineups work. Now, granted, since Topex has gotten to LaSalle, they've, based on 2 years that he's been there, they're a team that tends to get better as the season progresses. Because remember last season, or rather 2 seasons ago, they actually went 500 in their first 6 games, 3-3. They lost to UP, Ateneo, and NU. And then they went on this winning streak to end the second round all the way to the final four. They lost game one by 30 also, ironically, against UP and then won the championship. And then last season naman, they actually started relatively decent, the record-wise, but if you look at the way they were playing, they weren't that great. If I'm not mistaken, they lost to UE, and I feel like I'm forgetting one more team that they lost to. Trying to remember. They beat NU in that opening game, but it was a struggle to win that game. But they did lose to UE. Um, hmm. I think they only lost 2 games actually last season. But even if they were winning games, they were winning last season based on KQ's talent. Now they're 2-2 already, 4 games through the season, and they don't have a KQ to save the day just with pure talent and pure ability, which they could have used in this game against Ateneo. But because of that trend and that history, am I confident LaSalle will get better as the season progresses? Absolutely, because that's what the trends show. And they're too talented not to get better, in my opinion. These guys are vet guys. Phillips, Baclan, Cortez are college basketball vets. They'll figure it out. We should also mention JC Makalalag did not play in this game. I don't think he would have made the difference of a win or a loss, but he definitely is an important part of this LaSalle rotation. Him and Abadam in those wings to provide extra ball handling, floor spacing, shooting. And the way JC can operate from the corner is something that they could have used in this game against that zone that Ateneo was playing with. But I will say that if you're a LaSalle fan or if you're following LaSalle basketball, at the very least, first to fourth quarter consistency needs to be there. The hustle, the energy. The rebounding is fine. They're a good rebounding team. But their execution sometimes, you see that they have this tendency to lean on ISO plays or one-on-one plays with their talent. When they should be a team that when everyone is clicking well, that's when it really explodes, right? When Baclan and Cortez can get in the paint, draw defenders, kick it out to shooters, or Phillips crashes the offensive glass. I do think, and Phillips, by the way, in this contest had 17 points and 50% shooting, 7 of 11 from the free throw line. Not great, but not bad. An improvement, right? 20 boards, 6 assists, and was actually a +5. He was big in that run along with Jacob Cortez down the stretch. They should play through Cortez and Phillips more, I feel. And then let everyone else kind of be complementary pieces. Let Baclan do his thing off the bench, have the ball after Phillips and um, Cortez gets a rest. Have Mason there to spread the floor. Let him be a shooter first, the occasional post up. But play through Phillips and Cortez because when those two guys took charge in the fourth quarter, we saw how quickly the game changed because they play with so much pace, so much energy, and the way they play too just seems to energize the team.
You're absolutely correct. Kasi Lasal, for whatever reason, like whenever they're down, I think I've noticed this. I think versus Adamson. Was it Adamson? I'm forgetting which one. Basta there was this one game prior to Ateneo that LaSalle was down for a bit, and then you can see that the energy was just sapped. Walang energy ang LaSalle. And like, you can't play that game in the UAAP. Like, sige, you can be down, pero you never give up. It's corny, it sucks, it's cliche, it's Pinoy basketball all over again. Pero it looks really, really bad, especially to a courtside viewer or to the fans na, ay, down kami by 8 points, oh, we're down by 10. Parang we can just make it up later on. Parang there's no later on. You turn it up now. Like, I don't think this game should have went the way it did because Ateneo had a meltdown in the fourth. Let's acknowledge that. But at the same time, LaSalle decided to turn it up in the fourth. Like, you couldn't do that earlier? Pwede naman eh. You're supposed to be able to do that because, with all honesty, I see LaSalle as the favorites for the season. I still see them as that way, despite the record. But may lacking eh. There's a lacking killer instinct from LaSalle this year that I'm
Killer
not
instinct, yeah.
seeing. I'm not seeing that. I was hoping to see that from someone, maybe Jacob Cortez, maybe Kian Baclaan, but I'm not seeing it.
They're better when they get boards and they can run. When Baclan and Cortez can push the pace. Just because they're speedy and Phillips is quicker than your normal big man, so he can rim run real quick and get you easy points or offensive rebounds. And that's why what Ateneo did today was so impressive too. They countered that by being very methodical with their offense. You notice that they didn't mind having guys like Ladia or Escobar go 1-on-1 late in the shot clock so that LaSalle can't get early opportunities. And even when LaSalle did rebound the ball, Ateneo did such a good job getting back down in transition. you know, funny story. Ateneo's team manager, the guy who won the NBA 2K championship, I think it was Paulo, right? I believe it was Paulo, but their team manager. I got to talk to him once, and I was like, "So, what was your secret to win the NBA 2K Esports Championship for the UAP for Ateneo? He's a two-time champion, by the way." He said, "Oh, I just followed what Coach Tab said. Always have someone get back so that they can score in transition." It's so simple, but it's so effective. Ateneo's transition defense was great. And when they forced LaSalle to play in the half court, again, that length, that ability to shrink the floor was so important because I didn't see Cortez and Baclaan really driving, penetrating the way they did in the off-season games against Ateneo. It was like the initial 1-2 actions of LaSalle were stifled. And that's where it gets tricky, not only for LaSalle, but a lot of teams, where when your plan A, your plan B doesn't work. Do you have a plan C? Do you have a plan D? Do you have multiple counters? And more importantly, can you get to those counters in a 24-second shot clock? Methodical, fundamental, and principle. That's the defensive schemes Tabs elite squads have always had. Now, they don't usually foul as much as they did. Granted, you could say some of those fouls were, kind of like, that's a break of the game. Why are you calling that, right? But a lot of them were fouls because Ateneo does play physical. But this Ateneo team right now, the way they play defense in that Adamson contest last weekend, the way they played defense against LaSalle in the first half and the third quarter of this game, reminded me a lot of how Ateneo's championship teams used to play defense, where you could get by one person sometimes and someone's there already coming waiting to help. And before you know it, you're resetting the offense and you're playing their style of play rather than implementing how you want to play.
No, I think that's the important thing for Ateneo. Like, the half court execution was different, very very wildly different to LaSalle's half court execution, which was honestly very very putrid. My eyes hated it. Everyone hated watching LaSalle's half court offense, but the defense, okay, good enough. But for Ateneo, it will be blasphemous if I say that this has shades of the season 82 team, like the team that won it all. But do I want to say that? Yes. Do I believe it's possible that they can be that season 82 team after that fourth quarter? No, definitely not. But it's in the realm of possibility. I will give them that. But this Ateneo team has been siguro the most effective, or at least the most beautiful it's been in the past 3, 4 seasons. So Ateneo's half court execution shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, to be honest.
it really helps them too that they have two go-to guys who, when everything breaks down, can just get you something out of nothing. Escobar gets so much. First of all, he has a great first step. He seems to be able to blow by whoever's defending him. And he has so much space because of his wide upper body. He's got a very good shooting stroke. And meanwhile, Ladi can just rise up over anyone and take contested shots and hit it. And he's dangerous from mid range and 3 point range. And he also hustles. He had a couple of follow up dunks because of his athleticism and size and length. He can get an easy 4, 6 points a game just in that. Then he's a solid rebounder as well. These two have really upped the ceiling for Ateneo. And everyone's, not everyone, but a few people have been telling me, like, okay, wait, even if they beat LaSalle today, like, not championship contenders yet. They still have UP, UST, and U. I don't think so. I think they are championship contenders, man. It's not just that they beat LaSalle. It's not just that they led LaSalle by 33 at one point. It's also that they seem to know who they are. They seem to have an identity. They seem to be able to up their performance on both sides of the floor when needed. And what's scary is I feel like there's further room for them to even get better. Right? Like the performance we saw from them today, they were good, closer to great the first 3 quarters, not so great the fourth quarter, but they weren't perfect yet or close to perfect. There's still room for improvement, and this team is only going to get better, in my opinion.
I would have to say so because Ladi and Escobar, I've christened them as the crash out twins of Ateneo because this Ateneo team needs someone to be those guys. Like yung super energetic and they're chirping at everyone. The refs, the coaches, the players, sometimes the fans. I've seen them chirping at fans during one of the games I've covered. So you need that energy. As dirty as it looks or as bad as it looks for them, it's a different type of energy that Ateneo has been lacking for a long time, or at least for the past 3, 4 seasons. So you have that, and then you have Jared Bahai finally coming into his own. You don't look at the box score and say Jared Bahai just 3 points lang, 4 rebounds. His what do you call this? His effect on Ateneo goes way 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 beyond the box score. In that fourth quarter, when Jared Bahay was not on the floor, I was sweating bullets. Kinakabahan ako. Because when you had Ayan running the floor, God bless his soul, I love Ayan. I love him to death. I love the effort. There was no composure for Ateneo. Kabado. Because LaSalle was closing in. It all looks helpless. Oh no, we're gonna drop a 30 plus point lead to LaSalle. Oh my God. And then Coach Tab finally, thankfully, brings in Jared Bahay to stop the bleeding. And everything finally goes well.
The difference this season compared to last season is Bahay doesn't need to be a scorer. He doesn't need to be someone who has to put up 12, 14 points a game regularly to give Ateneo a chance, which last year I felt like he needed to do. This year he could lean more towards the playmaking, the ball management. How many turnovers did he end up having in this contest? Bahay. He had 3 turnovers. But in recent games, he's been good with ball security. And for him to just have this job in his second season where it's get the ball to the wing players who can really score, bring the ball down, protect it from being turned over, control the pace, be more of a game manager than a knockdown shooter. That role is suited for him at this stage of his career. I'm not saying this is who he's going to be forever, but like you just mentioned, there's a calm factor when he's in the contest. One, because even if he won't hit a lot of outside shots, you still need to contest these outside shots because, like he proved in that FU game, he can get hot in a hurry. And two is because he knows how to get the ball to the right people at the right time. Don't get me wrong, he'll still have some crazy passes. Like I think for a second in that game, he thought Josh Lazaro um was Mike Phillips with that lob attempt. And I immediately looked at Coach Tab, and Coach Tab's reaction was, "What are you doing?" Right? But he'll do more good than harm. And considering where he is early in his career at this point, that's a pretty good thing. Now let's look at the stats real quick for LaSalle here. So I did mention Phillips's numbers. Cortez had 10 points, but on 13 shots. I felt he was very ineffective in this contest. It seemed like he was really aggressive and good there in the fourth period, but the first half he was really a no-show. EJ Goliana had 7 points. Mason Amos 6 points and 7 shots. Doy Dungo 5 points. Kian Baclan had 13 points but needed 16 shots. So LaSalle's dual guard combo combined for 23 points and 8 out of 29 shooting. That is very ineffective. Luis Pablo, 5 points, 1 of 4 shooting. I thought he'd kind of be better than he has been so far this season at this point. Marasigan, just 2 points. Abadam, 3 points. So Topex ended up playing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys in this contest. 12 guys, which isn't bad, but it also does tell me that because of the way the combos were going, who was in with whom, like we mentioned earlier, he's still trying to figure it out as well. 1 to 5, what's your panic meter for LaSalle right now?
I am putting it at a soft 4 if I am
Hmm.
LaSalle because I think they have room to grow and they should be growing because they look. This isn't the LaSalle like what you pointed out. This is not the LaSalle that we saw in the preseason that everyone was afraid of. Oh, they're gonna run the UAAP because of the preseason tournaments. Pero it's not them. And if I were LaSalle, I'm pressing the panic button as much as I can, as early as now, because you cannot end the first round with a losing record. You really cannot afford that because mahirap maghabol. In the UAP, you just have 14 games and you're down 2-2. You need 10 more. You have 10 more games coming up. So, what can you do in the coming 10 games? I don't know, but LaSalle has a lot of challenges to figure out or at least find ways around it.
I'd put it at a 3. A 3 because I think it's evident now that the rest of the UAP has caught up to them, meaning NU, Ateneo, and UST. And UP has proven, like in the win against NU, that they still have what it takes to win these big games when needed. So the competition is much better. Like if you're talking about from a balanced perspective than what it was last season, and them being secured of a twice to beat isn't as clear as day as it might have been before the season started. So 3 because they need to pick things up sooner rather than later, but also only a 3 because I feel that they still have the pieces where once everything clicks and Topex figures out how to make this machine hum the right way, it's gonna look really good. Now, how soon they can get there and will they be in too deep a hole before they actually get there are questions that need to be answered. Ateneo, meanwhile, it's gonna be a tough week. They did face LaSalle and they won. On Wednesday they have UP at MOA, and then on Saturday they have UST at the Blue Eagle Gym. So it's a gauntlet, and then they end the first round with NU. But hey, it's what you have to do if you want to prove that you're a contender, a proper contender, which I already think they are. And I'm not ready to say yet that they're gonna sweep the rest of this first round. I'm not there yet. I do think they end up losing at least one game, but you have to add them in the mix at this point. I think that's clear as day. Now, speaking of another team looking to win a championship, the UP Fighting Maroons improved to 2-2, beating the NU Bulldogs at UST on Saturday. Now, NU was up by 13 at one point in the third period, and then Miguel Anigas gave UP a much needed spark that, a scoring spark they needed because getting points seemed to be troublesome for them throughout that contest. And then in the fourth period, Harold Alarcon, great two-way play. Man, Steve Nash Enriquez was having an awesome performance against UP. Hit some really tough ISO jumpers in the fourth quarter as well. And assistant coach Christian Luanzon said after the game that UP, the team, they were in and out of practices the last few weeks because of a viral infection that was going around. And even Alarcon wasn't quite 100% in this game, but still managed to pull through at the end and lead this team. Does this mean now that UP is back to being an elite squad? Not quite there yet. This game against Ateneo on Wednesday is going to reveal a lot, in my opinion, but more encouraging than how they started the season. That's for sure. You can even make a case, if not for Ray Allen Torres game winner, UP would be 3-1, Adamson would be 0-4. But in terms of the perspective of UP, one, at least Remogat seems to be a little more confident now than he was when the season started. Two, Alarcon hasn't quite super emerged but has proven that he can be a go-to guy down the stretch. And three, beating an NU team that was undefeated before that UP game with the way they were playing, having just defeated UST, that's a confidence boost that the Maroons can take going to this game against Ateneo.
No, actually, the thing is with UP that the what I saw against NU, parang they're more in their skin. Like they know what they want to do now compared to the first two games. Like aside from you, I think the UE game was a massive confidence boost for them. They finally figured out when to go to Ray Mogat, when to trust in Francis Noruka, Harold Alarcon, when should he contribute, when to be the passer, when to just let the offense run through others instead of himself. And that's important because it came out in the third quarter that UP hung 14 points to NU's 9. So that was an important run for UP, and I will not take that away from them because they looked really, really good in that third quarter. Now, Francis Noruka, the offense that we've been waiting to see from him, it was beautiful because it was against Omar John. Omar John, for those who don't know, is a two-way big that focuses heavily on the defense. Now, Francis
Did a
Noruka
good
had
job
his
on
moments.
Okoe, right? Omar John did a good
For
job
the
on
most
Okoe.
part,
Yeah.
yes, definitely, definitely. And I give Omar John his flowers for that because it's deserved. But against Francis Noruka, he looked extremely good for some reason against Omar John. I don't know what it was, but maybe it's because Gani Stevens was there, more active in helping out Francis Noruka get more confident in the paint, roll to the basket, get those open shots, or even just in the transition. UP is rolling, I would say. It's a very, very important game for them to win. So let's see how they do against Ateneo on Wednesday.
The thing about UP and why they won this game and why that fourth quarter was so impressive. By the way, in that fourth quarter, NU did not make a field goal until 25 seconds left in the game, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. That, for the first time, more than the UE game, and look, at this point, if you blow out UE, I'm sorry, I'm not going to put so much stock into that. UE, again, I love you guys in the community. You guys deserve the best. This season ain't it. I am so sorry, but this season ain't it, UE. The difference with how UP won this game against NU is it felt like how UP won, how UP would win games the last few years. Let the defense power the team, right? Get stops, get out on the break. You play physical, you deny the other team from scoring, your crowd is really into it. UP, for all the talent they have, I don't think they're a squad that wins championships by outscoring you or by being more explosive than you. They beat LaSalle in that game 3 last year in large part because they did such a good job forcing KQ into tough perimeter shots and forcing the Green Archers into very difficult jump shots. Once that defense is humming, when they can stay in front of the first guy attacking, the second guy attacking, close out hard, and end the possessions by rebounding the ball, they can run. And when they can run, they're very deadly. And when they run, they seem to get like this. You know how you used to play Need for Speed in PlayStation? You get the NOS and you just get extra power. That's how they are when they get the stops and they run. Because the crowd, like I said, they get into it. The ball seems to move better when they're passing it in transition to each other compared to when it's a half court setup. And even to the half court setup, they have guys like Kermogat and Alarcon who can do damage. Naruka as well. One of the reasons why I think Omar John struggled against Naruka compared to Oko is because he has a harder time against nimble, athletic, more malleable bigs compared to bigs who try to beat you with power, right? But when they can run and they let their defense power the offense, they just take it up a notch. And I wanted to see if this current team, without the guys who left after last season, could still do it. And that fourth quarter against NU, a team that's rolling, proved that they can. And that's why if you're a UP fan, that fourth quarter should be very encouraging. Now, what is not encouraging is that they can seem to play 4 quarters of consistent basketball. Again, the UE game, it's an outlier because it's UE. But the three other teams, Adamson, UST, and NU, they seem like almost like LaSalle, and this is why both teams are 2-2. They haven't been able to play 4 quarters of consistent basketball yet. But you need to start somewhere, and that fourth quarter was a start.
And if anything, I want to give credit to at least Gani Stevens because he showed out in this game. Like he was better in this game. Like I would say this is his best game aside from the box score, because the box score is one thing, it's just the counting stats. But when you see Gani Stevens on the floor in this game, he was there doing the rah-rah speeches and the energy guy that UP desperately needs him to be, because Harold Alarcon cannot do it alone. Ray Remogat cannot do it alone. Francis Noruka definitely couldn't do it alone. So you need Gani Stevens to be that glue guy that UP sorely needs. And on the transition, as you pointed out, UP on the transition is terrifying. It has shades of last year or the past few seasons. It's not as potent or as effective as the past seasons, but I think it should be their calling card. Force the defense. For example, take the Adamson Soaring Falcons blueprint. You play hard-nosed defense, tough-nosed defense on your opponent, force the turnovers, then start running, because UP has lengthy wings and guards that can run the floor and bigs that can run the floor. So I think that will be their key for the rest of the season.
With NU naman, one of the reasons why they're great is sometimes one of the reasons why they fail to win these big games. Like they won that game against UST, and to me that was awesome because their first two wins against FEU and UE are against teams you expect to be in the lower half of the league standings. But that game against UST, at UST even, it was, right? They won at UST, and UST was undefeated until that point, was super encouraging because they were down in the fourth period, but they out executed UST in the final quarter. And something clicked in that game in Jake Figueroa, where Jake Figueroa played the role of a closer in that contest, which was why I was kind of disappointed that Jake didn't get the ball much in this fourth quarter against UP because I wanted to see what it would be like if he got to decide how the offense would run. Now, granted, part of that was because UP played good denial defense and made it hard for him to catch the ball, but more so because NU's offense is share the wealth. A lot of ball screen action, load one side, leave the weak side maybe a little cleared and swing it there and attack. Get the ball to Palacielo down in the block. Get it to Omar John sometimes. Have Enriquez pull up, ball handoffs. And Figueroa is part of all of that. But I do think once in a while when you have elite talent, which I think Jake is, you just kind of have to give him the ball and let him win you or lose you the game. And I was hoping NU would do that, but they didn't. So I'm curious to see how else NU will play in similar late game situations down the stretch. Because look, NU, we know you guys are good. We know you're effective on both sides of the floor. We know you're well coached. But when it comes to these big games, somehow something ends up lacking. Or you do win a big game, but you can't win consecutive big games. You beat UST, and then you lost a double-digit second half lead to UP. You win that game, you're with Ateneo as the only undefeated squads in the UAP right now. And you probably put yourself in early good position to get a twice to beat seed. We've seen this with NU before. They start strong, they falter late, they end up having a twice to win disadvantage, and it really bites them, right? So once in a while, I would like to see, Jake maybe say, I'm gonna take control of this ball and this offense for 2-3 minutes straight. Because he's good enough to do it. And I know I sound like I'm advocating for ISO ball. Not exactly. I'm advocating for give the ball to the hands of your best player and let him win you or lose you the game. Why not try it once in a while? Am I being a little too crazy here?
No, definitely not, because Jake Figueroa is the most polished player that NU has. And they need that someone to be the takeover guy in any championship caliber team or in any Final Four contending team, you need to have someone that you will fully trust. Win or lose, you need to have someone that you can trust. It's impossible to win a championship or at least be a strong contender for a championship without having that person on your side. And you has it in Jake Figueroa. Honestly, this kid is pro ready. Whether he decides where he goes, bahala na. That's a problem for later on. But now in the UAAP, he has the tools to at least carry in you through some more tougher games, which is coming up, especially in the second round. Jake Figueroa will be needed by the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, NU ends their first round against. They still haven't played Ateneo. They still haven't played Salle. And I think they have a game against Adamson left. Now Adamson's tricky because first two games we thought that they looked like a Final Four contender again, and then the last two games were awfully disappointing. The way they just faltered in the final quarters against Ateneo and then FEU. And congrats to FEU. They finally dug it out and got that first win. And January Pascual looks like a stud. I thought this was going to be Jork Bautista's team. I think this is becoming January Pascual's team. Now, Mo Conat is the most important person in the team. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of who the guy is of the squad, and I know it sounds like such a cliche conversation, but it just feels like there's a shift that's happening where Bautista is still good, and there are gonna be games where he's still gonna lead the team in scoring or have the ball in his hands in late game situations. But Pascual is the future, and he's making the present the future already with the way he was playing. He hit that dagger shot in the win against Adamson earlier. He led that comeback against DLSU the other day. He was stupendous against Ateneo. I did not think he would be this good, this fast. But the fact that he is only great news for Coach Sean Chambers and the FU Tamras. Okay, Karl, it's almost midnight, so let's end by giving our updated rankings of all UAP teams right now. You go first. 1 to 8.
Updated ranking. So sadly, UE going fourth. I'm sorry.
Fourth? You mean eighth,
FEU.
right?
Sorry, eighth. Sorry, eighth.
You
See,
got them excited.
midnight brain, midnight brain, midnight brain. I'll give it the midnight brain.
You
So
need some
UE in
matcha from
eighth.
Coopers.
You need to send me some, bro.
I do. I got you.
So UE at 8, FEU at 7, Adamson at 6, UST. Oh god, UST at 5, NU 4. No, no, no. NUP at 4, NU at 3, LaSalle still at 2, Ateneo at 1. Homer take, but
Mm-hmm.
4-0, you cannot discount 4-0.
You cannot. They're my number one too. I think Ateneo 1, UST 2, LaSalle 3, UP 4, and U 5. FEU 6, Adamson 7, UE 8. I have to give it to FEU over Adamson after the way he earlier played. And by the way, Kirby Moncopa also. I like that kid. He knows how to play. By the way, you know what's crazy? He was out for 2 years with a knee injury. Came back, was cleared just last June. Scored double figures in 3 straight games, and he looks like a stud, man. FEU lost VJ Pre, and they're not slowing down. I'm not saying they're a Final Four contender this year. In my preseason prediction, I said they're a year away from being a Final Four contender. Next year, they're gonna crash at party, and I really hope they stick it out with Coach Sean because I love the job, the culture that he's building there at FEU. His boys are playing so hard for him. Good job, FEU. You guys will be back before you know it. Karl, thanks so much for joining me, man. Appreciate it. You have yourself a good Monday tomorrow, and I'll be seeing you around, man.
See you, man. See you, man. As always.